and we left with a sense of respect, and that's beautiful. And the thing is, out of everybody else, you stuck out in my mind. There's some people that stick out because you believed in what you were doing. You believed in what you were saying, and I understood what you were saying, and I was pushing you to get you to say more.
Do you remember what the conversation was about?
It was about the Nation of Islam. You said basically that I was a groupie with them because they were Muslims or they were white or black or something. And what you didn't know is that my work with gangs and drugs and all the stuff that I had done with them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a picture of me in that magazine, and the amount of love and respect we had for one another. And I develop respect for people and what they do, not what they say or who they worship or how they worship, if they get on their knees or bow to the east or the west. I'm a Buddhist. We accept everything. And I can only judge them by their work, by their efforts in the community, and by what their perceived goals are and how they go about getting those goals. Yeah, Facebook is not my forte. My forte, as you can see in this room, is people.
Yeah.
And trying to build something and use hip-hop as a voice for those without voice.
One of the things that I keep on hearing from people is, before I met you, was wait till you meet Ernie. He's got a presence. That was the word. And when I took a look at the photos that you've done from the 70s.
Oh yeah, you said something like, I'm impressed with your work, but you're shallow or something, whatever.
No. We're past the fighting part.
No. But I think basically you were saying I was realized as a photographer, but not as a person, and I accepted that as pretty harsh. But I could see where you were coming from, and then we built on that.
Well, there was a lot of, on my part, I coming from sort of an MC way of thinking, sometimes you diss your opponent not because of truth, but because you just have the power to diss.
Well, you said something that rang true. You said, I didn't like white MCs, and there's a lot of black MCs that, basically suck ass. So the truth is, some of the better MCs that I've known have been white. Michael Barron, aka Serge from Third Base. House of Pain, I love them. I mean, those cats are my friends on Facebook, and we went back, and those cats. So, I don't think that really has anything to do with your ability. I think it has to do with your energy. Your energy's right, or it's not.
It's interesting that you bring up something like Serge, because I bet you that the new class of kids listening to hip hop could name Illmatic as one of their favorite albums, but probably have no clue that he was the executive producer on that album. So it's interesting, because I think what you're doing when you speak at this event and when you go around and you speak at other events and just with your photographs, I think you're giving the new generation kind of a hip-hop starting point so that they understand what the culture is like from a historical level.
Yeah, but I want to do something else. What I want to do is make them understand on the most primal level that hip-hop is or was the voice of the voiceless. And now that you have a voice, what are you saying? What are you doing with that voice? Look at Egypt, look at Libya, look at places where you have to walk into. Look, the greatest photograph or image I've seen in my lifetime was that young man in Tiananmen Square standing in front of a tank. And as the tank moved, he moved. He wasn't suicidal. He was possessed by the spirit of freedom. That's what hip-hop could be. Instead of, selling a bunch of stuff we don't need and wasting money we don't have to give to people who don't appreciate it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to either bury hip-hop because it's no longer valid, or take it back, snatch it back. In my book, Who Shot You, I talk about the colonization of hip-hop, and I'm very clear about it. And you have to understand, at 64 years old, I had a life before hip-hop. Hip-hop started in '74. I'd already had a life before '74. I was born in '47. A lot of people were born in the hip-hop generation and grew with it. I already had a life. I was already realized. I had already been studying Zen Buddhism. And I had met the jazz masters, and I had met people who wanted to overthrow not the government, but the mentality that leads to oppressive regimes around the world. So when I came to hip-hop, I came with an entirely different energy. you know, I respected it as a voice of the voiceless, and I respected it as an art form that had the potential to create a revolutionary change in how we conducted ourselves with each other. I don't believe in armed struggle and all that. I'm too old for that. Berets and leather jackets, that's cool on a poster. What I'm talking about is basic, going back to Native American, how we share food, how we share resources, how we share clothes. We're in a time right now where food is about to go up 35 or 40%. Gasoline, cotton has just gone up, you know, and people don't realize. And at the same time, we have animals falling out of the sky and bees going away and all this. And people are not connecting the dots.
Do you think that there's a point to be made by when it first started out as the voice for the voiceless? They were almost protecting their people from corporate America. And then it seems like they've become corporate America. Well, in a sense, or agents of corporate America or something. Now they're doing what they didn't want to be done to them.
Run DMC said, Calvin Klein is no friend of mine. I don't want nobody's name on my behind. But they didn't mind Adidas sneakers on their feet. So, you know, they sold out immediately. And it's not a matter of just of that. But when you sell alcohol to people who are poor, and you're doing Hennessy commercials and beer commercials and all these other commercials, then you're actually hurting your people. And I've been offered all kinds of money, gallery shows, this, that, and the other, and you know, to be part of that. I will not put my name on anything that's negative. Condoms would save lives, I'll put my name on. Energy drinks would give you a little pep, okay. But, you know, and I'm not rich, but I'm not gonna put my name on it.
Sometimes it's hard to tell when you look at your work, who are the subjects versus acquaintances versus friends. It really, because there seems to be a universal respect for what you do and the access that you've been able to get. Is there any artist that you're like real friends with, that you have a kinship with?
Oh, probably many. KRS-One, Africa Bambaataa, Chuck D, Flavor Flav. There are many that, you know, have been to their homes, they've been to mine. Vinny, or Vin Rock from Naughty by Nature. Vinny had a bad habit when Naughty by Nature was hot of them never making $1 without them breaking off 10 cents or 25 cents to me to make sure that I was represented. Chuck D always made sure that I had money and food on my table, and in return I made sure their faces were pushed up against the window of the world. Africa Bambaataa, man, it was just our love and respect for one another, and the fact that he tried to make peace in a warlike environment. I mean, I've known the guy for over 30 years, and every year I learn more and more about him and get deeper. And, you know, MC Lyte, you know, Lin Q from the X-Clan, Paradise Gray, Paradise from the X-Clan, The Architect. There's so many that, you know, I've really become, you know, I mean, KRS asked me to be a keynote speaker at the Temple of Hip Hop at the United Nations. I mean, you know, it took me a long time to even accept that. And when I told my family that I was going to speak at the United Nations, they were like in awe, because that's historic. And there are many that, you know, I don't talk to. I won't talk to because they're just lost, and I don't want to contribute to that.
So other than Kanye West, who's your favorite hip hop artist? I'm just kidding. He doesn't really like Kanye West that much.
Your art can't be greater than you. If you're lost, your art is lost. And I'm not saying that artists don't usually have schizophrenic, like Van Gogh or Gauguin or, you know, Picasso all had demons. I mean, we all have demons. Marvin Gaye had demons. We all got demons, but when your demons are greater than your art, and when you have labels pouring money on you and you're lost, your art's going to be lost. And the more labels give you and the more money they give you, the loster you're going to get.
Just before we go, what do you think of Toronto? You've been here now a few times.
Toronto to me is a place that seems, if they haven't, they're on the path to getting past race. They're getting past skin tone. And I'll never forget, a few years ago I was doing a lecture in LA, and this one man that people were arguing about race, and he said race is a construct. I had to think about that, and everything in LA seemed like a blur except what he said. And then when I looked and I found out that what the word construct really meant, all the definitions, I realized that race is a construct. And Toronto is one of the few places in the world where people seem to have evolved past that. They don't call us Indians or Indians, they call us First Nations. And there's a whole bunch of other things. So you guys are in the right direction in trying to get past those mental barriers. And without scaring your audience too much, we have some very bumpy roads ahead. And the only thing that's going to save us is our unity and our love. And I'm looking to Egypt and Libya and all those people that are fighting to put food on their table. And if we don't act quickly, the bottom's going to fall out because our economy is predicated upon smoke and mirrors at this point.
Well, I'm glad that Toronto, at least while you're here, has an ambassador in hip-hop and a voice like yours to teach people. I'm the Odd Manic. This is Ernie Pinicioli, again, legendary hip-hop photographer. You can check the link on the bottom of the screen to go buy his books. You won't be disappointed. Everybody there from 1974 till the present day. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Peace. James!
That's my brother right there. You know my brother?
I know you well. I worked for that. Back in the head for all of 97. I know his mom and I know and I got the new jacks and the jerk off with the shots, you know. But from Alpha to Omega. And I make it simple. If I haven't photographed great hip hop, that's simple.